Welcome back. In this short clip, I just want to tell you about the deliverables and structure of the infrastructure engineering research project. This slide, which is also available in the information booklet, contains a synopsis of activities. Those items that are in orange are assessed work, and there are also some hurdle requirements that you need to be aware of. Let's start at the beginning. You have just finished this stage of nominating your project, and that was the first hurdle requirement that you now have succeeded in passing. And you have a topic and a supervisor for your project. Through the first half of your project, you'll be concentrating on discovering the context, writing a literature review, and proposing and perhaps testing a methodology and method for your project. And this will culminate in about the middle of your total project period of the proposal report. This is your first major deliverable and accounts for about 20% of your total project mark. Having finished your proposal report, in the second half of your project, you will respond to the feedback given on the proposal report. You will also perhaps undertake data collection, analysis and discussion as you implement your project, and then this will lead to the final report for your project. The final report is worth 50% of the total project marks. And having finished the subject and your final report, it's possible that you might, with your supervisor, go on and publish some publications from your research project. So that is obviously the main axis of the implementation of your project and accounts for 70% of the total marks. However, there are some other things that are also quite important. Communicating your findings takes place in a number of ways, and of course the written report is the essential and most heavily weighted component. However, we also have you present an oral presentation. So if you have a team of researchers, it's a team oral presentation at the end of the project to present to an audience of your peers your findings. Another important way research is communicated is by a poster, and so we have a poster presentation. The poster presentation is a rather different form of communication that is often a very important means of communication used in the presentation of outcomes of scientific and engineering research to audiences of your peers. The other important items of assessment are listed at the bottom here. The first one is the project record, and this is a record of pretty much all the activities that went together to enable you to do the project. So it might, for example, contain minutes of meetings. It will contain a record of the papers and books and so forth that you read. It might contain data. It could contain snippets of computer code or drafts of models as you develop them. The idea of the project record is that at any time during the project, your supervisor should be able to look at that project record and understand how you got to the point that you are at the moment, and also record what your next steps might be. If at the end of the project there is any question as to what happened during the project, for example, if you invented something and you wanted to patent the invention, then the project record will be what is used to establish the date on which the invention took place. Also, if you had any dealings with clients or other people outside your project, there would be a record of that happening in the project record. And finally, on the assessment side, we have an item called a professional development record. The Infrastructure Engineering Research Project is a capstone project, and it's meant to be a place where you can bring all of your knowledge and skills together to execute a major engineering project. Now, the development of your skills in this regard is very important in terms of being able to eventually perhaps get a job. And we would like you to use this opportunity and ask you to use this opportunity to identify skills that you think perhaps need development before you graduate, and to use the project as a platform to develop those. In order to support your learning, we have tutorial exercises and lectures such as this video clip that provide the opportunity to learn and practice skills that contribute to your project. We also ask you to attend a number of seminars and provide critiques on those seminars. These critiques are several-fold to build your critical thinking skills, to build your ability to evaluate other people's research, and to build your knowledge and appraisal of presentation techniques, whether they be successful or unsuccessful, of other presenters, so that when you come to do your oral presentation, you will have a list of items that you might want to either emulate or avoid in your presentation. Finally, if you're involved in a team project, then there is ability for you to assess the team members. For teams of 3 or 4, we require you to undertake the peer assessment using praise, and we'll use that as part of the evidence, as well as information from your tutor and supervisor to inform the contribution of various group members if we believe that it is most equitable that a different mark be given to different group members based on the contribution of those group members. So that is the deliverables and main activities in order to complete your research project. Now, the number of activities might seem rather large, and you're thinking, well, how can I fit all this in? I just wanted to show you this, which is my expectation of how you might spend your time. This is a 25-point subject, so we would expect about 400 hours of total work to be contributed to the project. If we start right at the top here, we have the choice of topic, which takes a very small amount of time, a little bit of research before the start of semester. We ask you to go to seminars, 6 seminars in total, and writing a critique on those seminars. That's a requirement, a hurdle requirement, and in the overall scheme of things, does not take a lot of time. Writing a project journal. This is the recording of what you're doing, and it's really just an essential part of your research. And what gets written in the project record will, of course, contribute directly to your proposal and final reports. The professional development record is an individual journal style item, and about developing your skills. And once again, we wouldn't expect you to spend more than perhaps half an hour a fortnight on the implementation of the individual journal. The oral presentation is very important. You will need to develop the presentation materials and practice that presentation, and then participate in the end of project conference and be a critical audience for your fellow presenters. Similarly, the poster needs to be developed and presented. That will occur at the same time as the oral presentation for many students, or might involve presenting at the school's Endeavour exhibition. Finally, there is the pretty much one whole semester's work, which is implementing your project, and the blue other large chunk is the development for your proposal report, the literature review, understanding the context, and developing the methodology and method. So as you can see, the bulk of the time is actually spent on doing your research. There are other activities related to communicating your research, and then some essential documentation of those activities. And this forms the basis of your project. So what do you do next with this information? I would suggest that the first thing you do is put into practice some of the skills that you would have learnt in your project management classes with regard to managing your time and activities, your resources. So I suggest that you create a Gantt chart for your team and list on it the deliverables and critical dates and any other items that you believe will help you schedule your time. During the duration of your project, I would be encouraging you to revisit that at least half a dozen times and adjusting the chart to take account of any changes that have happened in the rate at which you're doing work and the adjusting for the perhaps unexpected changes in sizes of resources required for particular items, or changes in critical dates that might be beyond your control, such as access to laboratories. And finally, I would ask you to engage with clip 3, that is the next one on the agenda, to understand your project as a system. So thank you for listening, and tune in to the next clip when you're ready to proceed.